Kenji, I'm okay if you start letting people in. Good morning, Gajentif. Nice to see you. As I said last night, I won't be able to say Gajentif to all of you because I can't see everyone's face or names, but I like starting off by welcoming the people that I do see. So hello and Gajentif to Rick Muller and to Annette and to Abe and to, I think that's Janet, and to Ronan Landon family and to Renee and to Judy and Joel and to Karen Cass. Where are you, my Gabbai? I need you by my side, Gabbai. You're not here. And to Ilan and Annie. And to, I can't see that name, and to the Spiegel family, and to Jacques Van Dam. So wonderful to have you with us, Jacques. And to the Moss family, good morning, Gajentif. And to Arnie and Judy Albin. And to Sam Gerlich, Gajentif, to all of you. There are more of you there that I just can't. Hello to see Resnick, Gajentif. Just if the names aren't big enough, I can't see them all. But I'm welcoming everyone, even if I haven't called your name out. And we've got a challenge right now. We've got you might think this is actually perfect. We have all of high holiday services in 2 hours. You're going to say to me next year, hey, can we do that again? And the answer is no. We're going to be lingering in long services that never end this year. But for now, we're going to be in and out in, sorry, not 2 hours. That's the other service. I'm all famished. You have more than 2 hours. This is actually a full traditional service without the things that require a minyan, but we're still going to move with some amount of speed so that we don't have you just be glued to your screens for hours and hours and hours. So we're going to begin on page 37. All the pages I'm going to be calling are out of our Lev Shalem Machzor. Please rise if you can for Birkot HaShachar, morning blessings. Page 37. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasech v'hi bina levchin ben yom u'ben laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani betzalmo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam abi sharmim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam atir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef gufufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam roka aretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasali kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam amichim mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozeh Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oteh Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanotein le'ayev koach. Page 38, you may be seated. Baruch atah Adonai hamavir shenami yadaynu mafi afapai. Unenu ayom achayom lechen lechesel rachami benechem nechol roenu v'tigmalenu chasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. And we are going to be skipping some of Truncated Zimra because we are aiming to get to the sermon so that everyone on all the different Zooms can hear the sermon at the same time at around 10:30. So where there will be skipping in this service, it'll be Truncated Zimra. Page 44, Psalm 27 for the high holiday season. LeDavid Adonai Orivi Ishi Mimi Ira Adonai Mos Chami Evchad Bikrov Laimratu. Achat Sha'alti Me'et Adonai Ota Abakesh. One thing I ask of God, and that is what I request, to sit in the house of God all the days of my life. Lachazot b'noam Adonai u'lebaker b'heichalo. Ki avivi miazavuni. Lule manti l'ropetu v'adonai be'eretz chaim kabel anai chazak v'yameitz libecha v'kaveh el Adonai. Page 45. Mizmor shir chanokat habayit leDavid arubim chanai kidilitani v'lo simachto oivai li Adonai halo ashivate elecha v'tirpaeni. Elecha Adonai ekra ve'yel Adonai et chanan. We're in the middle of that page. Elecha Adonai ekra ve'yel Adonai et chanan. Shema Adonai bechoneni Adonai ozer li. Shema Adonai bechoneni Adonai ozer li. Hafachtem besbidim lacholi, we talked the sakri tazreini simcha lamani zamer chach vovodom Adonai Elohai leolam odeka. Mourner's Kaddish, page 46. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemir Rabbah, Bialma divrach hirutei, Biamlich malchutei, Bechayechon v'yomechon, Uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, Bagala uvizman kari v'meru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevorach, Leolam leomei maya, Yiparach v'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar v'yitshomam v'yitnasei, Yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shemei dekudasha brichu. La'ela, la'ela, min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'yimru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, amen. Please rise, Baruch Shamar, page 47. Baruch Shamaraya Olam Baruch Hu Baruch Hu Serishi Baruch Omer. Yachid Cheolami Melech Meshubachim Fardei Shemo Agado Baruch Ata Adonai Melech Mula Halbati Shpachot. Maybe seated. Sorry, you may not be seated. I mean, I can't force you, but it's traditional to remain standing. Please turn to page 56 for what's called Hallel Hagadol, the Great Hallel. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov ki le'olam chasto. Hodu le'Elohei Elohim ki le'olam chasto. Hodu l'Adonai ha'adonim ki le'olam chasto. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov ki le'olam chasto. Shebishivlena zacharlanu kilam chasto, v'yifrkeinu mitzarenu kilam chasto, noten lechem l'chol basar kilam chasto, hodu le'el shamayim kilam chasto. Page 58, you may be seated, the Psalm for Shabbat. Mizmor shir liyom ha-Shabbat, tov l'Adonai l'zemer shuchal yon, l'agigi b'boker chastecha v'nchav ha'elot el Yisrael. Od yenuvun beseba deshenim berananim yiyu lehagid ki ashar Adonai tzum li velo havlatabo. Especially given my sermon last night, it's painful for me to skip Psalm 93 on 59, but I am doing so. But as that psalm that has the phrase Mishpareyam, the sea breakers that I referred to last night, but Ashrei is considered the more important psalm, so we'll go to Ashrei, page 60. Ashrei Yeshvetecha Jalucha Sela Shem Shekach Lo Shem Shonalo Havtal. Tilat naidaber pi v'rakol basar shem godshol elam ba'ev anachnu navarech yam yatav olam. Hallelujah. Bottom of 62. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Sing with me. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Keep it going. Hallelujah. Adonai min hashamayim. Hallelujah. Bameromim. Hallelujah. Chol malachab. Hallelujah. Kol tziva'av. Hallelujah. Shemesh ve'yareach. Hallelujah. Kol koch ve'or. Hallelujah, Shmei Hashamayim v'Yamayim Asher Meyal Hashamayim. Yeah, Hallelujah, Et Shem Adonai Ki Utziba v'Nibrau V'Yawa Mideim Le'ad Le'olam Noten L'Chol Bazar. Yeah, Hallelujah, Et Shem Adonai Ki Utziba v'Nibrau V'Ya'amideim Le'ad Le'olam Chok Natan velo yavor. Hallelujah. 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 Middle of page 63, we'll add in Psalm 150 because I see Deborah Bard and I know she likes this tune. Hallelujah, El Bikocho, Hallelujah, Birkiauzo, Hallelujah, Vigevurotav. Hallelujah, Kirov Gudlo. Hallelujah, Beteka Shofar. Hallelujah, Benevil Bechinor. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Kol Nashamata Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Kol Nashamata Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Please turn to page 67. Nishmat Kol Chai Tevarech et Shimcha Adonai Eloheinu. Nishmat Kol Chai Tevarech et Shimcha Adonai Eloheinu. Yananai Yanahai Hanai Dai Hanai oh ai Hanai Hanai, yai, dai, dai, hayai, yada, da, yai. Please skip to page 69, second paragraph. Ha, 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 Hamelech Yoshev Kisei Ram Benisa Shochenad Marom Vekadosh Shemo Vechatuv Rananu Tzadikim Baronai Lai Sharim Nabatahila Befi Yesharim Tita Romam Uvdirei Tzadikim Titbarach Uvilshon Chasidim Titkadash Uvekerev Kedoshim Titalal Uvmakalod Rubevot Ladola Lela Shabbayach Lefael Robim Ladelavarech Laleu Kales Al Kol Direi Shiro Vitish Becho David Ben Yishai Abdecha Meshichecha Please rise Yishtabashim Chaliyad Malkeinu El Melchagdol Bakadosh Bashamayim Baaretz Bracho Vedod Me'atavia Dolam Baruch Atah Adonai El Melech Adol Batish Bachot El Odaot Adon Niflaot Habocher B'Shirei Zimra Melech El Chei Olamim. It's customary to add in Psalm 130 before we begin Shacharit. It's on page 70. It's customary to rise. But before we do so, throughout the high holidays, I'm going to be sharing short little bursts from many of you who responded to my email prompt from a few weeks ago, and that is to reflect on or sum up your life in 6 words and see what was produced. Some beautiful, beautiful mini essays on lives were produced. I'll share these in small chunks, all of them anonymous without attribution, but you will hear perhaps your own. Here's the first connection. Still flexible after all these years. Constancy of change rejuvenates and refreshes. Had lymphoma, blessed with second chance. Grateful for life, feeling the distance. Revolution, immigration, built family and career. I've been blessed with enough. And the last one for this group, in search of authentic experiences every day. Page 70, there's no one to really echo along with me, so I'm just going to sing this out loud, and you can sing it along with me, Psalm 130. Shir Hamalod Mimamakim Karaticha Adonai. I call out to you from the depths. Adonai Shima B'Koli Tiena Oznecha Kashuvot Lekol Tachanunai Im Avonot Tishmor Ya Adonai Mi Yamod Ki Imcha Slicha Leman Tivarei Kiviti Adonai Kivata Nafshi B'Lidvaro Hochalti Nafshi ladonai, mishomrim laboker, shomrim laboker. My soul awaits for you, O God, more expectantly than those who watch the morning dawn. Yachel Yisrael Adonai, ki im Adonai achesed, b'harbe imo fedud. Ve'uivded Yisrael mikol avonotav. Now, I need to do some navigating with you before we start this part of Shacharit. So, for those of you who've been used to our daily and Shabbat Zoom minyanim, we're considering this a minyan for the purposes of Mourner's Kaddish, but we're not considering it a minyan for the purposes of other things that require minyan. So we're not going to do the Baruch Hu. When we get to the Amidah, what's going to happen is as follows, and it's going to require you to do a little bit of navigating around. So I want you to walk through it with me now so that I don't have to announce it then. Turn to page 80 in your Machzors for a second. We're going to sing Tzur Yisrael together. Then we're going to start together out loud, although we won't hear each other. Page 81, which is the first page of the Amidah. We're going to also do page 82 out loud together. And the very top of 83. When we get to 83, we're going to skip most of that page and go to 85. And we're going to do only one of the three piyutim or poems that we do in Shacharit. And I'm going to say each line of 85 out loud, and I'm going to wait and pause so you can repeat after me. Then on 86, we're going to do kind of a quasi-Kedusha. We can't do a full Kedusha because we don't have a minyan, but we're going to sing through some of it. And then at the bottom of 86, this is where it's important. You have to remember, you're going to turn back to page 13. On the bottom of page 86, you're going to turn back to page 13 and continue your quiet Amidah for Shacharit, right at the top of 13. So when we get to the bottom of 86, maybe I'll just bang on the table, and that's to remind you to go to page 13. Last reminder is that it is Shabbat, so we make inclusions for Shabbat, not only for Yantif. And when we get to the Shema, since we're not a minyan, you say the three words El Melech Ne'aman in front of the Shema, which you can see on the top of page 77. I never thought that would ever be a need for that in a Machzor, because who would ever be in a situation where they wouldn't do with a minyan on holidays? But I guess this is that year. Okay, I hope you have most of that. I'll try to help out as we go through it. We're now on page 71, and you may be seated. And because it's Shabbat after 71, we're going to go to 73, just at the bottom of 71. Middle of 71. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol or olam b'yotzar chaim orod me'ofel amar vayehi 73 hakol yaducha v'hakol yishavchucha v'hakol yirmod kadosh k'Adonai. En kerkachar na olam hazeh ve'en tuladcha malkeinu l'chayei olam haba eves b'lecha golen limot hamashiach ve'en domeh lecha moshienu l'tchiyat hametim el Adon al kol hamasim baruch u'mborach befi kol neshama gadlo v'tuvo malei olam da'at u'tvuna sob v'imoto hamit gae al chayot hakodesh Benedar bechavod al merkava zechut umishor lifnei chiso chesed verachamim lifnei chevodo to the end of that next page. Shevach notnim lo kol tzeva marom tiferet ugedula srafim ve'ofanim bechayot hakodesh. L'shem kol hamasim b'mashviat alav yatzam. Tiparach Moshino Shavech Masedecha Bial Meore Yorshasita Yifaru Chasela Tiparach Tzurina Makina Bagolina Barek Doshim Shisha Kulam Maovim Kulam Birurim Kulam Giborim V'Chulam Mosim Beima Uvira Ritzon Konam V'Chulam Potchim Bihem Midushav Tahara Beshira Uvezimra Umbarchim Umshamchim Ufarim Artzim Aktishim Umamlichim Et Shem Elam El Hagdol Gibor V'Naglashu V'Chulam Nekablim Alem Omochut Shemayim Zeh Mizeh V'Notenim Reshut Zeh Lazeh Laktish Etzom Benachad Ruach V'Safa V'Ruah B'Nima Kedosha Kulam Kecharonim Yorim Be'yirah Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzmuch La'aretz Kevodo V'Afanim B'Chayot HaKodesh Berash Gadol Minasim Limat Serafim Limatam Meshalchim Yorim Baruch Kevod Adonai Min Komo Liel Baruch Nimod Yutin Amlachad Kayam Zmirot Yomer V'Tishvot Yashmil Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir v'nizkechu lanu meira le'oro Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer hamiorot Ahava rabavtanu, page 76. Adonai Eloheinu Chem lagdola v'teracham alta aleinu avinu malkeinu b'bor v'tinu shabbat b'chavod V'ha'ereinu b'toratecha v'dahabek libeinu v'mitzvotecha v'heyached lehevavenu liyahava ulira et shemecha V'avienu l'shlom yabakan for the aretz v'tolichenu kamiyut li'artzenu ki el plei shuadata uvana b'charta mikolam v'lashon v'kerev tanishim chagadol sela be'emet lahodol l'chal yachercha b'yahava baruch ata Adonai habocher b'yamo Yisrael b'yahava el melech neman Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher tzeitti etchem mieretz Mitzrayim liot lachem leElohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem emet v'yatziv v'nachon v'kayam v'yashar v'neman v'hu v'chaviv v'nechmad v'neim v'nerav v'nerav. לדור ודור קיים ושמו קיים, וכיסו נכון ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת, וברב חיים וקיימים נאמנים נחמדים ליד ליום העולמים, אבותינו בעלינו ביבוננו בעלינו. אמת שתהו אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלכנו מלך אבותינו, גואלנו גואל אבותינו, יוצרנו צור ישועתנו, פודנו מצילנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך, עזרת אבותינו, אתה הוא לעולם, מגינו מושיע לבנינו. We're on page 79. Tilo le'ayom baruchum vorach Moshe v'nei shalachanu shira b'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam mi chamocha balim Adonai mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh nora tehilot o sefer shira chadasha shivchu geulim l'shimcha sfat hayam yachad kulam hoduim lichu v'yameru Adonai Yimloch leolam ba'ed Tzur Yisrael Kuma be'ezra Yisrael Uftechenu mecha Yuda ve'Yisrael Go haleinu Adonai tzvaot shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael Adonai zvatai tiftachu fi agiti latecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov, Ha'el Hagadol v'Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avod, Umevi Goel Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo, Be'ahava Misod, Chachamim Unvonim, Umilem Edat Mevinim, Eftechafi B'Tfilah B'Tachanunim, Oy Lechalot, Oy 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 Elchanein, Pnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim, V'Adonai Ha'adonim, Zochreinu Lechayim, Melech Chafetz B'Chayim, V'Chodveinu B'Sefer HaChayim, Lemancha Elohim Chayim, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, B'chayei metim Atah Rav leHoshia, B'chalkel Chaim B'chesed, B'chayei metim B'rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim B'rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Geburat, Umido Melach, Melech Meimitu Mechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Michamocha Ahava Rachamim, Zocher Yetzurav, L'chaim berachamim, V'nemanata l'hachayot metim, Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayei Hametim, Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohayich Tzion, Ledor Vador, Hallelujah. Ve'ata kadosh Yoshev, Tehilot Yisrael, Tehilot Yisrael, El 95. Uvechen lecha koyach tiru liel orech din levochen levavot, b'yom din logole amukot badin. Ledover meisharim b'yom din lehogedeyot badin. Levatik v'yoseh chesed b'yom din lezocher bito badin. Lechomel ma'asav b'yom din letaher chosav badin. To the one who knows our thoughts on the day of judgment and who conquers his rage in judgment. Lelovesh tzedakot b'yom din lemochel avonot badin. Lenora tilot b'yom din lesoleach lamusav badin. Who answers those who call upon God on the day of judgment and who enacts mercy in judgment. לצופה נסתרות ביום דין, לקונה עבדיו בדין, לרחם עמו ביום דין, לשומר אוהביו ביום דין, לתומך תמימיו ביום דין. ובכן לך תלך קדושה כי אתה אלוהינו מלך. נקדש שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב ביד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר. אז בקול רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק, משמיעים קול מנסים לעומת, צרפים לעומתם, ברוך יאמרו. ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו, לעולם בעת תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים, עירך לדור בדור, ולנצח נצחים, ועינינו תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך. ידעי הרמי ידעי 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 הנאי ידעי ימלוך עלי למעש לדור ודור, הללויה, לדור ודור, נגיגו לך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך לא מפינו לימש לעולם ועד, כי המלך קדוש, וקדוש אתה. Yai rai, yai ra ra, yai 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 yai, ay yai ra ra nai, yai rai, yai ra ra, yai yai yai, ay yai 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 ra ra nai, yai rai, yai ra ra, yai 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 yai. Ay, ay, da, 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 yay, da, yay, da, da, yay, 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 da, 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 yay, 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 yay. Yay, 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 da, 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 yay, da, yay, da, da, yay. Yay, nay, na, na, yay, yay, yay. Yay, 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 yada, yay. Yay, day, 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 yada, da, day. Yay, day. Yay, da, da, yay. Yay, 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 yay. Ya, ba, ba, yay. If you're still davening the Amidah, please continue at your own pace. I see a few names of people that I didn't see before and faces. I want to welcome you again. If I don't say your name, I'm not excluding you. It just means that I don't see you. So, Gajentif, and good morning to Stanley and Marlene. I'm actually not only looking at your faces, but I'm looking at the exact seats that you normally would be sitting in if you were here. And to Renee Bainwald, Chag Sameach, and Gajentif. And that might be Brant DeVerne. I can't tell. Yes, Brant DeVerne and Jen Lowe, Gajentif. And to Richard Levy, and we hope that you are safe and breathing clean air up in Oroville. And who else is there? I can't see the others, but was that Larry and Diane? Larry and Diane, Chag Sameach. Wonderful to have you, Gajentif. And yes, Karen and Michael, Chag Sameach, go Yankees. And many more of you whom are just not visible to me right now. Hi, Steve, Stephen Spiegel, Gajentif, and Chag Sameach. You may be seated if you were standing. As some of you who are used to the sanctuary services know, I give kavanot, little bursts of thought throughout the services in addition to the main sermon. I gave my sermon last night, and I try to save a good one for the very end to reward the people who've stayed through the end of Musaf. But in this odd construction of services now, I won't be with you at the end of Musaf because I'm handing off to Rabbi Chorny around after the sermon, and then I'm going to be leading an outdoor service while you're having Musaf with Rabbi Chorny. So before we start the Torah service, I want to give the little little piece of Torah that I would have given at the end of services had I been with you at the end of the services. So you can fantasize that you're already at the end of services, except that at the end of this one, you still have to stay and daven more. So many people were intending to get married over the last few months, obviously. And there have been so many cancellations and postponements and miniaturizations of weddings. One of the ones that I did officiate at this summer, the couple thought it over. Should we postpone? Should we change the date? Should we think about everything from the beginning? And what they finally came to was that what is this ceremony really about? It's about us. It's about our love. It's about our future. And everything else is commentary. So let's do it. And they did it. Small, miniature, and safe. Without some of the extraneousness that we've gotten used to when it comes to the modern wedding shindig. But it may be one of the most holy weddings that I feel I ever officiated at. They pulled the essential out of the unessential. And it's a lesson for us. And it's true for B'nai Mitzvah. And it's true for even funerals. My dear friend and colleague who's doing some version of this down the block, Rabbi Yosef Kaneski, says something interesting about our ubiquitous phrase that we just throw out there so we never think about anymore. And that's the word Shana Tova. Which year are we referring to when we say Shana Tova? We think we're referring to the year to come because the full phrase is L'Shana Tova Tikatevu. May you be written in for a good year. And certainly this year, we can't be referring to the year that we have just completed. We can't be saying that that was a good year because it's been awful. Unless there is still more that we can be doing with this terrible year. And he suggests we follow the example of our patriarch Joseph. After Jacob dies in Egypt, the brothers carry him to Hebron to be buried in Marat HaMachpelah. And there's a whole procession. And as the Torah describes it, the brothers seem to be getting along quite well as they go to bury their father. But when they return, the brothers fall on their faces and they plead obsequiously with Yosef, please forgive us. They even quote Dad, saying, Dad asked us to ask you to be nice to us. Joseph cries, why do they think I would hurt them after I've taken care of them for 17 years? I've now taken care of them for as long in Egypt as I was away from them in the interim. There's a midrash from the rabbinic collection in the early centuries of the first millennium that deepens the story. While they were in Canaan, the land of Israel, for the burial, Yosef goes to Shechem. Nowadays we call it Nablus, or it looks at like Nablus and Shechem on the map. That's the place where they threw him into the pit. It's also the place where Yosef will eventually be buried. And according to the Midrash, Yosef stands there at this place of trauma, the first place he was thrown into a low holding zone. And he stares and he thinks. The brothers are watching him, and they assume that when he looks at the place where they threw him into the pit, that he is quietly planning and plotting his vengeance. But the sages of the Midrash put the following musing in Yosef's mouth. And I've colloquialized it a bit. They have Yosef saying, what an idiot I was. Me, not them. How I manipulated my father into making me his favorite. I was so arrogant. I was so insensitive. Yeah, I was allowed to have dreams, but to tell them in that way, yeah, wear that coat in private, but when I'm around my brothers, I was self-centered. I'm not going to do that again. I will never behave in such a stupid way. According to the rabbis, with my paraphrasing, that's what Yosef was thinking by the pit, not, I'm going to take vengeance on them. Yosef was turning a painful past into a moment of learning so that he could say even of what was, it was tov. It was tova. It was good. That's what that wedding couple that I mentioned before did. That's what so many B'nai Mitzvah in our community and around the world have done. They could so easily have been demoralized. This is unfair. I'm not going to get nearly as many gifts as Joey got last year because fewer people came to mine. And yet so many have been claiming this moment in the kind of mature way that exemplifies what that rite of passage, bar bat mitzvah, should be about. Making even this past year, a Shana Tova. I want to give one more example. I was speaking to a colleague of mine amongst the many that I connected with the last few weeks. And like many of us, he was calling up members throughout this era, this season, keeping in touch with them. He called one of them, just kind of randomly, and he caught this member in a car, driving somewhere, with his two kids fighting in the back seat. And the rabbi kind of listened as this man refereed them with one hand on the wheel and one hand keeping them away from each other in the back seat. They had the briefest of talks, and the rabbi thought that the moment was over. That night, the man sent him an email. And this is what was written in the email. Thank you. Thank you for having called me. I am depressed, lonely, and hopeless. I'm at my wit's end, and I'm not sure how much longer I can go on. Makes me emotional to read through it. Your call gave me my first hope and dignity in a long time. My colleague said he'll never take calling people on the phone as routine ever again. The Midrashic collection Avot Rabbi Natan said that one word of kindness in a time of trouble is worth 100 of them in times of prosperity. If we know that and we act it out, then even this past year will have produced goodness. And even this past year and what we learned from it will have been a Shana Tova. We are now going to go to the Torah reading. And obviously, if you've been following any of the Shabbat Zooms, you know that we do the Torah reading differently on Zoom than we do in person. We're not a full minyan. I'm not going to open up. Actually, the Ark doors happen to be open. But I'm not going to take the Torah out. And we're not going to sing all of what we normally would sing. But we should give some pomp and circumstance to this, because this is the Torah reading on the day of Rosh Hashana, even if it's not the full thing. So turn in your Machzor to page 96, and let's sing the first couple of lines, which are just verses from the tradition. Not just, they are verses from the tradition. You don't need a minyan to say verses. You need a minyan to do the whole service, and we can sing these verses together. 96. Ein kamocha ba'Elohim Adonai, v'ein kemasecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha b'chol dor v'hador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imloch leolam ba'ed, Adonai oz li'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom, Abharachamim, Heitiva b'irtzoncha et Zion, Tivnei chomod Yerushalayim, Tivnei chomod Yerushalayim, Ki becha levad batachnu, Melech el ram v'nisa Adon olamim. Skip to page 98 at the top, second paragraph. Nice and slow, giving these words the tune and the intention and the deliberation that they deserve. Be'ana rachetz. It is in God that my heart desires. V'lishmei kaddish, in God's holy name yakira. Anamar tushbechan, I will sing praises. Let it be in front of God's presence that you open up my heart to Torah, and you fulfill all of my desires and the desires of all the people Israel and all who dwell on earth, for good, for life, and for peace. Amen. Beyana rachetz velishmei kadisha, kadisha yakira, Anna Imar Tushbechan, Beyana rachetz, Beyana rachetz, velishmei kadisha, kadisha yakira, Anna Emar tushbechan, Yehi Rabba Kodamach Tiftach libi ve'oraita, Vetashlim mishalin delibi, Veliba dechol amach Yisrael, Letabu chayin velishlam. Amen. And let's turn to the middle of 98. We'll sing together the Shema and the Echad Eloheinu line to the special high holiday tunes. Imagine that I'm holding a Torah. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'norah Shemo. Just before we do the first aliyah, which is going to be read by, I have it somewhere, Deborah Bard, I believe. I'm going to share a few more of those 6-word reflections. So Kenji, if you can get ready to unmute Deborah in just a minute, but here a few more summing up of people's lives in 6 words. Worked hard, worried, never stopped striving. I dreamed to live in Israel. Love, be kind, heal, peace, hineni. Life appreciated, a life worth living. You are holy today, yesterday, tomorrow. Lowered expectations, finding small, joyful moments. You can say a lot in 6 words. And the Torah says a lot in few words as well. So Deborah, if you'll be unmuted, and we turn to page 100 for the first of 7 aliyot on this Shabbat of Rosh Hashana, the story of the birth of Isaac and the taunting and the playing of games between Isaac and Ishmael.
So, be quiet.
And go ahead, Deborah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
V'Adonai pakad et Sarah ka'asher amar, vayas Adonai l'Sarah ka'asher diber, v'tahar v'telet Sarah li'Avraham ben lizkunav lamoed asher diber oto Elohim. Vayikra Avraham et Shem beno hanolad lo asher yolda lo Sarah Yitzchak. Vayamol Avraham et Yitzchak beno ben shmonat yamim ka'asher tziva oto Elohim.
Beautiful, Deborah. And again, a mazel tov to you and your family, and Rachel's becoming a bat mitzvah. That's just one Shabbat ago. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What a beautiful service we had outdoors. If we can unmute DJ Rick so he can do the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and if he's good enough, the 5th aliyah. We'll see what happens. Rick.
Blessing first or no?
I think no. I think we're going to say that that Deborah's bracha carried all the Torah reading, because we're not really doing aliyot. So you can be within her bracha, and we are within your hands for your Torah reading. Vakasha.
Avraham ben me'at shana behiva lelo et Yitzchak beno vatomer Sarah tzechok asali Elohim kol hashomea Yitzchak li vatomer mi milel Avraham eni kavanim Sarah ki alati ven lizkunav vayigdal hayeled vayigamal vayas Avraham mishte gadol beyom higamel et Yitzchak.
Good. And Rick, before the 3rd aliyah, how about we do like a quick impromptu Dvar Torah on Trupp, which I know that you love to do. It seems to me that one of the themes of this Torah reading and of Isaac's name is laughter, playful laughter and taunting laughter. And I'd like to think that in the ancient world, laughter sounded similar than it does now, right? There's been an evolution of the species, but a laugh sounds like a laugh. So to me, you tell me if I'm imagining things, that when we introduce what Sarah believes they're going to say about her when they hear she's pregnant, sechok, the trup on the sechok, almost sounds like a laugh, a gadol. Say ho 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 ho, because the way I would have learned it, da 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 da. They're gonna laugh at me. And I wonder if this is the musical tradition, not just making it a memorable tune, but actually acting out the scene with the notes of the trumpet itself. What do you think?
I like it a lot. If you okay, tomorrow the ram, when they find it, it's trapped in the bush. It's the same trope.
Yes.
So,
but the ram wasn't laughing. The lamb.
No. That was the center of the story, or part of the story. Yeah,
that's true. Okay, third aliyah, verse 9.
Vatere Sarah et ben Hagar hamitzrit asher yalda leAvraham metzachek vatomer leAvraham garesh hamazot bet benach ki lo yirash ben hazot im beni im Yitzchak vayera adavar meod ben Avraham al odot beno vayomer Elohim el Avraham ayera beinecha al hana'ar ve'al amatecha kol asher tomar elecha Sarah shema b'kolach ki v'Yitzchak yikare elecha Zara.
Beautiful. I want to turn everyone's attention before we read the fourth aliyah to a beautiful commentary on the right side of the page on the last verse of the fourth aliyah. Rabbi Mendel of Vorki. I like it not only because I like saying the phrase Rabbi Mendel of Vorki, but he notices that the Torah says that God heard Ishmael cry out, but the Torah never says that Ishmael cried out. Look what he says. But we never read that Ishmael cried out. Thus we learn that God can hear the silent cries of the anguished heart even when no words are uttered. I find that to be very powerful in terms of training us to attune our ears to the cries that are never articulated, right? To the sadnesses that are never made explicit, but that if we want to be like the divine, we need to be listening to it, whether it's something close by, intimate, in a family, in a relationship, or something in a nation or a world. Even when the cry is not made audible, it somehow has to penetrate our consciousness. Fourth aliyah.
וגם את בן המה לגוי אשימנו כי זרעך הוא וישכם אברהם בבוקר ויקח לחם וחמת מים ויתן אל הגר שם על שכמה ואת הילד וישלחיה ותלך ותטע במדבר באר שבה ויכלו המים מן החמת ותשלך את הילד תחת אחד השיחים ותלך ותשב לך מנגד הרחק כמתחווה קשת כי אמרה אל אראה במות הילד ותשב מנגד ותישא את קולך ותבק וישמע אלוהים את קול הנער, ויקרא מלאך אלוהים אל הגר מן השמיים, ויאמר לך מלאך הגר, אל תיראי, כי שמע אלוהים אל קול הנער באשר הוא שם.
Yasher Koach. We're going to pause before the fifth Aliyah first for me to share a few more of those 6-word reflections, and then for Amisha Berach for Cholim. Here we go. Happy, but not yet fully content. Mother, grandmother, wife, daughter, lawyer, thankful. Despite diagnosis, blessed, loved, laughing, grateful. This one is so sweet and so beautiful. Sought God, transformed self, now chocolate. Strove for healing, today fully alive. Out of darkness, discovered abounding light. We'll pause and say Misha Berach for Cholim. I'll say the blessing for all those who are ill in our community, friends and family. I'll recite the list from the shul, and then I can't really unmute you and have you recite your own, but I'm going to pause so that those who would like to say their names out loud, please do. Say the name out loud, actually articulate it. It makes a difference, certainly makes a difference to the person saying it, and perhaps it makes a difference in the cosmos as well. You can say their Hebrew name and a mother or father's Hebrew name, or any name for any person will do. Misha Berach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov b'imotenu Sarah v'Rachel v'Leah v'Yivarech v'Yirapeh kol hacholim v'kol hacholot b'kila Kedosha hazot et Zahava Yafa bat Esther v'et Nima bat Malkia v'et Desiree Oleah v'et Irma Kuriel v'et Yehudit bat Frima v'et Rivka bat Pesha v'et Arnarella bat Yehudit v'et Mordechai ben Esther v'et Leah Friedel bat Bracha Kreindel v'et Catherine bat Sarah v'et Stanley Greitzer v'et Leah bat Freya v'et Harav Yaakov Baruch Uri ben Uri v'Chava v'et Yosef Menachem Mendel ben Gittel v'Yehuda ben Abraham v'Sarah v'et Chasha Chaya bat Sarah v'et Friedel bat Rachel v'et Gutman Wolf ben Frumagutta v'et Menachem ben Chaim v'et Akiva ben Naphtali u'Malka v'et Shoshana bat Leah v'et Chana bat Esther v'et Betuka Sarah bat Shenel Golda v'et Bela Esther Gittel bat Fega v'et Ben Sion ben Gittel v'et Chaya bat Sarah v'et Yaakov ben Abraham v'et Yoel Ari ben Esther v'et Tova bat Yosef v'Chav v'et Eliyahu ben Shena Shira v'et Ita bat Mordechai Leib v'Malka v'et Yelena Kramer v'et Ruvain ben Binyamin v'et Yehudit bat Li bat Sivya v'et Yitzchak Yaakov ben Paya v'et Yisrael ben Alfrieda v'et Aharon Avram ben Adina v'et Yosef ben Yeta v'et Rivka ben Nachama v'et Frida bat Esther v'Shlomo v'et Shmuel Mordechai ben Tova v'Eliyahu Chaim v'et Jenny Ashkenazi v'et Dorit Ashkenazi v'et Michelle Abramov v'et Mia Abramov v'et Shalom Ashkenazi v'et Yosef ben Devasha v'et Dvorah bat Gertrude v'et Neshama Rachel bat Sarah v'et Chava bat Yaakov v'et Sonia v'et Yisrael ben Gittel v'et Chana bat Nisan ufnina v'et Chaya Rivka bat Rezel v'et V'kol hacholim Hakadosh Baruch Hu Milei Rachmim Alehem Lachzikam L'Rapotam V'Yishlach Lahem B'mhei Refuah Min Hashamayim Refuah HaNefesh Refuah HaGuf B'toch Sha'ar Cholei Mo Yisrael V'Yishlach Bracha V'Atzacha B'chol Ma'asei Yedeihem Im Kol Yisrael Achayim V'Nomar Amen. We wish a full and speedy recovery to everyone whose name we mentioned, whom we're thinking of, and who is ill. We turn to the fifth Aliyah, bottom of page 101. Rick.
Okay. Kumi se'i et hana'ar v'achaziki et yadech bo ki legoy gadol asimenu vayivkach Elohim et eneha vatera be'er mayim ותלך ותמלא את החמת מים ותשק את הנער ויהי אלוהים את הנער ויגדל וישב במדבר ויהי רובה קשת וישב במדבר פרן ותיקח לו עמו אישה מארץ מצרים.
Sixth Aliyah, 102.
Me
Sorry.
or somebody else?
Jen Lowe is going to be unmuted, and she's going to be reading. Yasher koach to you, Rick. Beautiful laning, as always. Jen, bevakasha. So Jennifer Lowe has to be unmuted. There you go.
Okay. Vayehi be'etahi vayomer Avimelech ufichol sarso el Avraham lemor Elohim imcha b'chol asher ata oseh ve'ata hishava li ve'Elohim hena im tishkor li uneni unechti kach hesed Asher asiti imcha ta'aseh imadi v'im haaretz asher garta ba vayomer Avraham anochi yeshavea v'hochiach Avraham et Avimelech al odot be'er hamayim asher gazlu avdei Avimelech vayomer Avimelech lo yadati mi asa et hadavar hazeh v'gam ata Lo higareta li vegam anochi lo shamati bilti hayom vayikach Avraham sonu vakar vayiten lavimelech brichut shnechem brit.
Yasher koach, seventh Aliyah.
Vayatzev Avraham et Sheva Kvasot Hatzon Levarchen Vayomer Avimelech el Avraham Mahena Sheva Kvasot Ha'ela Asher Hitzafta Levadana Vayomer Ki et Sheva Kvasot Tikach Miadi Bavorti Eli Leda Ki Chafarti et Haber Hazot Al Kain Kara lamakom hahu be'er shava ki sham nishvu shnechem v'aychutu v'ripi be'er shava v'yakam Avimelech u'fichos sar tzavaho v'yashuvo al eretz Pelishtim v'yita eshel be'er shava v'yikra sham b'shem Adonai Olam Vayagar Avraham Be'eretz Pelishtim Yamim Rabim.
If we were in person, we'd have two Torah scrolls out, one to have read the verses we just read from the book of Breshit, and the second one to read the Maftir, the special reading for Rosh Hashana Maftir. We're just going to go straight to that reading in the Machzor. It's the middle of page 106. Jen.
Vayehi. No, sorry.
Chodesh.
Uvachodesh v'echad lachodesh mikra kodesh yelachem kol melechet avodah lo ta'asu yom teruah yelachem v'asitem olah l'reach nichoach l'Adonai har ben bakar echad ayil echad Kivasim b'nei shana shivat mimim umin chatam salet b'lulav hashamen shlosha esronim lapar shnei esronim la'ayil v'saron echad l'keves ha'echad l'shivat hakvasim u'se'ir izim echad chatad l'chaper aleihem Milvad olat hachodesh uminchata V'ola tataminu minchata, v'niskechem kamishpatam, l'reach nichoach ishel Adonai.
Yesher koach to you, Jen. Beautiful Torah reading. And again, yesher koach to everything you have done to help us get ready for the high holidays this year. We're going to now move to the Haftarah, which we're going to say without blessings, the long and beautiful Haftarah, the story of the birth of Samuel, who's going to be one of the most important prophets in the Bible. And we're going to hear the beautiful rendition of that Haftarah from Steve Gray. You can find it on page 108 in your Machzor. With your blessing, while Steve reads, I'm just going to be seated just to rest my legs for a few minutes because it's a long Haftarah, but you won't really notice because Steve will be highlighted and will be unmuted. So if we can unmute Steve Gray, and Steve, you can go right into the first verse of the Haftarah, second paragraph of 108.
Just before you go, I apologize, but should I be muted? Not muting myself, but the sound of my computer, the speaker should be off, so it's not double. You don't hear it twice. Is that right? You know?
Sure.
I think so. All right. Sorry for that, mundane. And I lost it. Great. Okay. All right. Vayehi ish echad min haramatayim sofim mehar Ephraim ushemo Elkanah ben Yerocham ben Elihu ben Tochu ben Suf Efrati velo shetei nashim shehem achat Chana V'shem hashenit penina, vayehi lifnina yeladim, ulechana ein yeladim, ve'ala ha'ish hahu me'iro miyamim yamima, ve'ishtachavot ve'lizboach l'Adonai tzvaot beShilo, ve'hesham shenei v'nei Eli, Chofni ufin chas kohanim l'Adonai, vayehi hayom vayizbach Elkanah, benatan lifnina ishto ulechol baneha uvenoteha manot, ulchana yiten mana achat apayim, ki et chana ahev, Vadonai sagar rachma, vechi asata tzarata gam kaas, ba'avur hareima, ki sagar Adonai be'ad rachma, vechein yaseh shana v'shana, midei alota beveit Adonai ken ktach isena, vativ kevelo tochal. Vayomer la Elkanah isha, Chana la metivki velame lo tochli, velame yera levavech, halo anochi tov lach, ve'asara banim, vatakom Chana acharei, ochla ve'shilo ve'acharei shato, Ve'eli hakohen yoshev al hakisei al mezuzat eichal Adonai vehi marat nafesh vatitpalel al Adonai uvachot tivkeh vatidor neder vatomar Adonai tzvaot imraot tireh ba'oni Amatecha uzechartani velo tishkach et amatecha venatata la'amatcha zera anashim unitativ l'Adonai kol yemei chayav umora lo ya'ale al rosho v'haya ki hirbeta lehitpalel lifnei Adonai ואלי שומר את פיה, וחנה היא מדברת על ליבה, רק שפתיה נאות וקולה לא יישמע, ויחשביה אלי לשיכורה, ויאמר אליה אלי עד מתי תשתכרין, הסירי את יינך מעלייך. ותען חנה ותאמר לו אדוני, אישה כשד רוח אנוכי, ויין ושיכר לא שתיתי, ואשפוך את נפשי לפני אדוני. אל תיתן את אמתך לפני בת בליעל, כי היא מרוב שיחי, וכסי דיברתי עד הנה. ויען אלי, ויאמר לכי לשלום, ואלוהי ישראל ייתן את שאלתך, אשר שאלת מאמו. ותאמר, תמצא שפחתך חן בעיניך, ותלך אישה לדרכה, ותאכל, ופניה לא היו לה עוד. וישכימו בבוקר, וישתחוו לפני אדוני, וישובו, ויבואו אל ביתם הרמתה, וידע אלקנה את חנה אשתו, ויזכריה אדוני. ויהי לתקופות הימים, ותהר חנה ותלד בן, ותקרא את שמו שמואל, כי מאדוני שאלתיו. ויעל האיש אלקנה ואל ביתו, לזבוח לאדוני את זבח הימים ואת נדרו. וחנה לא עלתה, כי אמרה לאישה, עד יגמל הנער והביא אותיו, ונראה את פני אדוני, וישב שם עד עולם. ויאמר לה, אלקנה אישה, עשי הטוב בעינייך, שבי עד גומלך אותו, אך יקם אדוני את דברו, ותשב האישה, ותינק את בנה עד גומלה אותו. ותעלהו עמה כאשר גמלתו, בפרים שלושה, ואפה אחת קמח ונבל יין, ותביאהו בית אדוני שילה, והנער נער. וישחטו את הפר, ויביאו את הנער אל אלי. ותאמר בי אדוני, חי נפשך אדוני, אני האישה הניצבת עמך בזה, להתפלל אל אדוני. אל הנער הזה התפללתי, ויתן אדוני לי את שאלתי, אשר שאלתי מאמו. וגם אנוכי שאלתיהו לאדוני, כל הימים אשר היהו שאול לאדוני, וישתחו שם לאדוני. ותתפלל חנה ותאמר, אל לחץ ליבי באדוני, רמה קרני באדוני, רחב פי על אויבי, כי שמחתי בישועתך. אין קדוש כאדוני, כי אין בלתך, ואין צור כאלוהינו. אל תרבו תדברו גבוהה גבוהה, יצא עתק מפיכם, כי אל דעות אדוני, ולא נתקנו עלילות. קשת גיבורים חטאים, ונכשלים עזרו חיל. שבעים בלחם נזכרו, ורעבים חדלו, עד עקרה, ילדה שבעו ורבת בנים אומללה. אדוני ממית ומחיה, מוריד שאול ויעל, אדוני מוריש ומעשיר, משפיל, אף מרומם, מקים מעפר דל, מאשפות ירים אביון להושיב עם נדיבים, וכיסא כבוד ינחילם, כי לאדוני מצאו כארץ, וישת עליהם תבל. רגלי חסידיו ישמור, ורשעים בחושך ידמו, כי לב וכוח יגבר איש. אדוני יחתו מריבה, עליו בשמיים ירם, אדוני ידין אפסי ארץ, וייתן עוז למלכו, וירם קרן משיחו.
Shakoach, Steve. One of the beautiful things I'll pull out of this season is that I normally don't get to hear you read the full Haftarah, because often during the Torah service, I'm moving around from minyan to minyan, giving different divrei Torah, and it was a real machaya to be able to sit and actually listen to every word of the Haftarah, particularly with your voice and your trup. So kol hakavod, yesher koach, we miss you, and it's great to hear your liturgical presence in this room, even if it's only through a speaker. As you may know from the many emails we sent out before high holidays, we have timed the service so that pretty much everyone in the community, no matter what service they're doing, is going to hear the sermon at the same time. The sermon today will be given by Rabbi Shapiro, and we're exactly on time. The sermon's going to start in 5 minutes, so we're just going to complete the prayers for the end of the Torah service. Rabbi Shapiro's sermon will be given at the Zoom, and will be given on the other Zooms simultaneously. And then by the time that sermon is over, Rabbi Chorny will have tagged me out, and she'll be leading you with Musaf, because I'm going to lead the service on Ziering Field starting at 11. So if you turn to page 117 in your Machzor, and please rise as we say a prayer for our country and the state of Israel, and then for peace. Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessings upon this land, upon its leader, its judges, I'll pause here, and its justices, who've lost a great one in the last 36 hours. We pray for the well-being of the Justice Department itself and of the courts. May the position be filled with integrity and with the right methodology. Officers and officials who are devoted in good faith to the needs of the public, instruct them with the laws of your Torah and help them understand your rules of justice, so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land. We pray, Adonai God, whose spirit is in all creatures, awaken that spirit within all the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from their hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife. Plant among those of different nationalities and faiths who dwell in our nation love and companionship, peace and friendship. May it therefore be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and cause them to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me, and let us say Amen. And we do say of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Yehi Zechra Baruch, may her memory be a blessing. And in case you're wondering what I meant by methodology in that sentence, is may the methodology by which the political system operates in order to determine her successor is the way it ought to be and the way it was intended to be, with fairness and integrity. Prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'goalo, Barech Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Smichat Gulatenu. Hagen aleh be'evrat chastecha, ufros aleha sukat shlomecha, ushlach orcha v'amitcha l'rasheha, sareha v'yoatzeha. Chazek et yidei miginei eretz kodshenu, v'anchilem Eloheinu Yeshua, v'ateret nitzachon ta'atrem, v'natata shalom ba'aretz, v'simchat olam liyoshveha, v'nomar Amen. I'm now going to add in the prayer that we've been saying throughout this whole season for the coronavirus, a prayer that was composed by my dear friend and Chavruta, Rabbi Gustavo Saraski, who serves the Jewish community, the Masorti conservative community in Ashkelon, Israel. Except that I don't have it. I printed out 2 of one thing and I missed that. Do I have it somewhere else? Hold on one second. No, I don't. I have it in my office, but I don't want to keep you waiting. Maybe I'll give it to Rabbi Chorny so she can say it later. So with this kind of completing our version of the Torah service, and we don't have shofar today because it is Shabbat, I'm going to ask you to be seated, and I'm going to prompt the technician to bring us to the words of Rabbi Matt Shapiro, who will be delivering the sermon today on the first day of Rosh Hashana. And again, to all of you who are watching, whether on Zoom or live stream, this will be the end of my presence on this sermon, on this service, because by the time Rabbi Shapiro's service is over, I will be heading towards the outdoor service to lead. But I'll see you for parts of the Torah service tomorrow. Good Yantif, Chag Sameach. Oh, you know what? We have 30 seconds left. I'll read you one more set of the 6 words. Ready? Singing, sharing, teaching, caring, writing, daring. Lived life fully, never enough time. Educator, protector, leader, father, son, Jew. Youthful dreams, most fulfilled, some surprises. The author of that one is on this Zoom. I hope you like hearing your words echoed back to you. Learning to compassionately accept, I'll start again. Learning to compassionately accept myself, others. Happy, healthy family. What else matters? Indeed. Kenji, Rabbi Matt Shapiro's sermon, please. I don't know what that said, Steve. Sorry.
Shana Tova, everyone. I wish I was sharing these words with you in person, and I'm grateful to share them with you now. A couple of weeks into the pandemic, after a few days of rain, a man stepped outside in Los Angeles, looked around, and composed a message to a friend of his. He wrote, "Now that the rain has stopped and today's storm has cleared, I urge you to go outside and take a deep breath. Inhale and exhale this moment and thank God for the unique beauties and wonders of this day. We should take advantage of every moment we can to enjoy the simplicity of God's creation, whether it be clear skies and sun or clouded over with gloom." This was a message from the late actor Chadwick Boseman, sent to his colleague and friend Josh Gad, who in turn shared this message publicly shortly after Boseman passed away a few weeks ago. At the time he sent it, few people, including the recipient, knew how sick Boseman was, though at that point he had been quite ill with cancer for years. Yet despite his illness, Boseman still had the ability to look around and notice the beauty surrounding him, irrespective of challenging circumstances, both in his own life and in the world. He wasn't denying the trouble or sorrow around him. He was able to see something bigger, something deeper for himself that he in turn shared and encouraged his friend to notice and marvel at as well. That perspective strikes me as vital and necessary for each of us always, but especially now. I'm getting tired of hearing about silver linings, of framing my experience as cloudy and then finding a glimmer, maybe two, of hope. I want to go beyond that, to find something we can find, as Boseman said, in clear or gloomy skies. I'll call that wonder. In preparing for this and emphasizing this word, wonder, I'm confronted with defining it. It's difficult. Related words that come to mind are awe, marvel, rapture, amazement, stunning, overwhelming, but none of them quite get there. Wonder is ineffable, definitionally beyond clear definition. I'll try it from an experiential perspective. I experienced wonder when I saw my kids running around and playing on the beach for the first time in months on Father's Day. I experienced wonder when I connected with my chavruta, my learning partner from over a decade ago, who now lives in Chicago for a Zoom class taught by a beloved teacher of ours who's still living in Jerusalem over the summer. I experienced wonder watching the sun set over the ocean during the few days we got away over the summer. And I experienced wonder that evening just relaxing on the couch with Sarah when we watched a movie, a whole movie, start to finish. These aren't contingent, they aren't conditional, they're just wonderful. In hearing me describe these moments just now, I hope that's prompted your own thinking about the moments of wonder you've experienced lately. What comes to mind? I recognize that many of the moments I've named are not a part of my everyday experience. Yes, that includes the movie. It's a rarity Sarah and I make it all the way through. Ideally, wonder is something I experience frequently. What makes that so difficult? How can I be more connected, more attuned? Our liturgy offers an answer in the way we move through the morning service. Right before the Amidah, the core prayer of the service, we recite words that Bnei Israel, the people of Israel, chanted, sang as they crossed the Red Sea, saying that God is Norah Tehilot Osef Eleh, awesome and worthy of praise, the one who does wonders. A truly miraculous moment is, of course, something full of wonder. And we don't just hearken back to that experience once, we say those same words earlier on as well. They're contained within the verses we recite, referred to as Az Yashir, just before Baruch Hu, the formal call to prayer. Recalling wonder, then, seems to be a precondition to concentration and connection through prayer. Yet well before that, at the very beginning of Psukei de Zimra, the first part of the service, we recite a blessing that God is Rofeh kol basar umafli la'asot, healer of all flesh, who does wonders. Yes, we cite the epic wonder of the Exodus, of crossing the sea, not once, but twice in connected moments of prayer. But first, we recognize everyday basic wonders. This blessing, after all, is recited not just in that liturgical moment, but when? After each time we go to the bathroom. Wonder, therefore, is accessible in each of those states, the ordinary and the extraordinary. Wonder is present in the epic and the everyday. Case in point, I recently had my annual physical, and thankfully, nothing to report. In previous years, this barely would have registered with me. One more thing to check off before I just keep going about my year. This time, however, it felt different. I walked out of that office nearly elated. Maybe this is because with each passing year, I don't take this as a given. But more so, I think, it's just due to the current state of the world. I no longer take my physical health for granted in the same way. Amidst the health crises we're facing today, our tragic, wholly extraordinary situation calls my own attention to my personal health in a different type of way. I'm then confronted with the choice, a decision about how to respond, and I can choose to connect with wonder. Wonder that I can stand comfortably, move comfortably, breathe comfortably. But is that appropriate? Is that enough? With everything that's happening, I just take a brief moment to notice, smile, and stroll on? Hardly. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel cites wonder as critical to the essence of religious and spiritual experience, and more than that, he names it as being of vital importance to our very existence in the world. He wrote, "Our hope lies in the certainty that all people are capable of sensing the wonder of existence. The grandeur and mystery of the world that surrounds us is not something which is perceptible only to the elect. All people are endowed with a sense of wonder. But our system of education fails to develop it, and the anti-intellectual climate of our civilization does much to suppress it. Humanity will not perish for lack of information. It may collapse for want of appreciation." Humanity will not perish for lack of information. It may collapse for want of appreciation. Heschel identifies something often lacking and what's at stake when that wonder is missing. To expand upon his words further, wonder is not merely a state of reflection, complacency. Through wonder, action is necessitated. This isn't just about noticing and being grateful for my own health. This is seeing it for the miracle it is and taking action to preserve and sustain it, yes, for myself, but more than just that. To then take actions to create conditions and possibilities for others to be as healthy as possible as well. Expanding that out and experiencing a state of wonder with my kids, I feel my absolute responsibility to protect, guide, and care for them. In wondering at nature, there is an obligation to care for it. In experiencing wonder in relationships, there's an obligation to sustain and enhance them. I've learned that we can understand the word religion as something that links us over and over. Lig as that which binds, think ligament, again. Wonder is exactly that. Not an idle or idyllic state, it is a religious experience in the truest sense, something that binds me once more to the world around me. Wonder compels action. Heschel goes on to discuss how we need to work towards this state, that it's far from a given. We need to put significant effort into cultivating wonder in ourselves and others, but that cultivation is elusive, however important it might be. Over the past few months, I've deeply enjoyed, learned, and benefited from a program through the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. And in one of the first modules of the program, Rabbi Jordan Ben-Dat Appel shares a personal anecdote of a time he went camping with friends. They woke up their first morning out, went for a hike, and after climbing up a hill, saw a magnificent vista laid out before them. As they were taking in this gorgeous, breathtaking view with mountains, valleys, a clear sky, Rabbi Ben-Dat Appel saw a sign that said very helpfully, "Scenic Overlook." Of course, if you need the sign to tell you that, you're probably missing the point. And yet, I believe we each have some version of that. A scenic overlook of one type or another in our lives every day, and we might miss it just as often as we notice it. Wonder can be elusive. As one potential tool, Rabbi Ben-Dat Appel offers the possibility of the breath as a way of anchoring us in our proverbial scenic overlooks, that each breath we take contains its own possibility for wonder. Just as we recite a blessing expressing gratitude for being able to use the bathroom, so too can we find gratitude in the inhale and exhale. And in this moment, September 2020 in Los Angeles, finding wonder in being able to breathe, a simple everyday miracle that Bozeman named in his text message, it resonates differently than when Rabbi Ben-Dat Appel's teaching was recorded. Today, the concept of breathing itself feels fraught, tenuous, with poor air quality exacerbating chronic health conditions, with the words, "I can't breathe," still echoing across the country. With an ongoing pandemic in which respiratory distress is a primary and potentially fatal issue, that basic function just isn't a given for many. I also recognize that not everyone is a meditator. Being told to focus on the breath might not work for you. And though it works well for me, if the concept of breath is challenging, triggering, I'd invite you to reflect on a different element of the natural rhythm of your body. Your heartbeat, for example. A steady, consistent beat. I hope that might bring you a deeper sense of connection and shift you to a sense of wonder in your own experience. Wonder can be recognized in each moment. And that recognition is fleeting. And more than that, even something truly magnificent might not register as a moment of wonder. Yehuda Amichai, the magnificent Israeli poet, put it beautifully, as he so often did, in a poem titled Miracles. He wrote, "From a distance, everything looks like a miracle, but up close, even a miracle doesn't look like that. Even someone who crossed the Red Sea when it split saw only the sweating back of the man in front of him and the swaying of his big thighs, or at best, in a hasty glance to one side, fish in a riot of colors inside the wall of water, as in a marine observatory behind panels of glass." That big miracle, the crossing of the Red Sea, we cite multiple times in our tefillot, in our prayers. Amichai says that the average Israelite barely noticed it. Up close, a miracle, no matter how epic or everyday, doesn't necessarily register. Our perspective is limited, restricted. We get distracted, and we take things for granted. There's a theme of this season that Rabbi Ben-Dat Appel offers a helpful spin on here: tshuva. Usually tshuva is translated as repentance. It can also be understood as a response, but Rabbi Ben-Dat Appel instead frames it as a return to breath, a return to the heartbeat, a return to the fullness of our experience. I will get distracted. I will lose sight of everyday miracles. I might even have moments where I miss out on something truly extraordinary happening right in front of my face. And I can take a breath, and I can return. Tshuva invites us to return to wonder. We often refer to this season as the Yamim Noraim, the days of awe. Perhaps this year we could also consider them as Yamim Niflaim, days of wonder. After all, today was the day that the world was created. What better moment for wonder than now? After all, the world is created anew each day. What better moment to hone our capacity for appreciation? I need this encouragement, and I'd imagine some of you do as well, particularly with all that has transpired over these past few months. But I trust, I have faith, that there is something wonderful happening in your day, today. A loved one you feel close to, the sunrise, a tune you're hearing as a part of services today that brings you joy. Hold it close. Wonder should be cherished. Let's expand that out. What are the moments you can think of over these past few months when you experienced the sense of joy, hope, uplift, marvel at the world around you? Can you think of a few? And even if you can't, I urge you to reflect over these next few days of wonder to try to discover them, even if it's just one. After all, wonder carries us as we move forward. If we're truly paying attention, I believe we can find return to wonder. Today, every day, the world is created anew in its messiness and in its glory. The beach is still there. Relationships endure and grow. Apples and honey are delicious. Community is possible. Music makes us want to dance. You are loved. Each of those things is worthy of wonder. This obligates us, you, to act, to protect it, to bring it more into your life and into this imperfect, beautiful, crazy world. And so we can and we must push ourselves to return to what's essential: the breath, the heartbeat, to pay attention whether we're crossing the sea or just putting one foot in front of the other, to see the depth and richness that each moment holds. Going back to Bozeman's words, inhale and exhale this moment, and thank God for the unique beauties and wonders of this day. And so I bless us with the following. May this year hold more clear skies than gloom. May we consistently notice the blessing of the natural rhythms of our bodies, of each breath, of the beating of our hearts. May these days of awe bring us a renewed sense of wonder that carries us in the weeks and months to come. And may we find gratitude in the unique wonders of this day and every day. Shana Tova.
Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova. Amazing how even on Zoom, we have the opportunity to trade from rabbi to rabbi to rabbi. Start your morning with Rabbi Kligfeld, get some words of Torah from Rabbi Shapiro, trade off to me. It's so good to see. Oh, it's so good to see your faces. I've missed you. I guess welcome me to the sanctuary. I know that we've just wrapped up on the Haftarah, and so here we find ourselves having finished listening to words of Torah. And that means that we are going to turn to some prayers for our country and for Israel. So we're going to do that now. Turn to a prayer for our country on page 117. We turn to the prayer in the margin on the left-hand side of the page. I'll read it out loud for us. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah, that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony, to banish hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. May this land, under your providence, be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen. And we turn just to the opposite side of the page in the Hebrew. And you can say behind your mute buttons, I'll say something out loud that I said just the other day in this gathering that we had with the Jewish Sacred Music Foundation. It's a wonderful group that the composer, Dr. Steve Rothstein, that he wrote this beautiful symphony for the High Holy Day season. I've had the privilege of hearing it and speaking about it recently. And we were asked on a panel, what is it that Chazanim wanted to say to our congregants about the High Holy Day season? And my message, and I stand behind it, is that I pray that you have lowered inhibitions in terms of your singing and your speaking behind the camera. And I don't mean that just about your speaking, but about your Hebrew as well. So if ever there were a time for that, even if your Hebrew is a bit rusty, I encourage you Avinu Shabashamayim, the bottom of page 117. Oh, we did? Oh. Oh. Sorry, I'm just following the outline. Oh, just Ashrei? Oh, okay. Rabbi Kligfeld is telling me that you already prayed for Israel in the country. I didn't. He tells me that they could use more prayers and that I should pray for them more, which is great. So I'll do that later on my own. That sounds good. We're going to go to Ashrei, and we're going to do that on page 120. If you're seated, you can already be seated. You're all so kind not to wave at me, though. That was very nice of you. He did come back in the room to tell me, though, which is also very nice of him. So that's very good. So I'm noting here for us that there is no shofar service. I'm sure you've talked about that too, right? Did you talk about that? How there's no shofar service? There's no shofar service. We already talked about that. Okay. There's no shofar service. Stay tuned. Come back for shofar service. There's lots of opportunities for shofar. I'll talk about that in announcements at the end. There's no shofar service. So there are 2 ashreis on page 120. Let your eyes go to the right ashrei on that page, which is the second ashrei on that page. But I'm going to finish my thought still about lowered inhibitions about Hebrew, okay? Here's my thought. Even if your Hebrew is rusty and even if your singing is rusty, no one cares. I don't anyway when you're in the room. God doesn't. Your partners probably don't. Your children certainly don't. Your neighbors don't. Your dogs don't. Your turtles don't. Your fish don't. Please pray. And if it's too rusty to pray in Hebrew, pray in the English. And if your English is too rusty, hum. And if you don't feel like praying, watch and listen, and it doesn't matter. So we're in the middle of page 120, the second ashrei on the page. Ashrei yoshvi beitecha, yehalelucha selah. Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo, ashrei ha'am shadonai Elohav. Tehillah leDavid aromim chalohai hamelech, levercha shimcha leolam va'ed. מלכותך, מלכות כל העולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. מלכותך, מלכות כל העולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. סומך. Tehillat Adonai hitabed pi, vivarech kol basar shem kodsho leolam va'ed, v'anachnu nevarech Yah, me'atav yad olam, hallelujah. So we need not do Yahalelu because we're not returning a scroll to the ark, but I would like us to turn for just a moment to page 123, because these words of the liturgy still hold. It's chaim hi l'machazikim ba. It is a tree of life to those who hold fast to it. So let's sing it anyway. It's chaim hi l'machazikim ba v'tomecheha מאושר דרכיה, דרכי נועם, וכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני Ilecha v'nashuva Chadesh yameinu Chadesh yameinu kekedem. if there weren't going to be a sermon here, then you would know that here on page 123, we would turn at the bottom of the page to Chatzi Kaddish, and you would hear me sing the following: if we had a minion in the room, I will give you 4 words. Hitz katam, Hitz kadash, Shemei Rabbah. I won't complete the thought, but I don't need to. It's okay, and it's also not okay. I miss you, and I miss the rest of that. But just those notes, and you know, and I know, it's time for Musaf. And that's okay. You are where you are, and I am where I am. We are still going to say Kaddish later today. At the end of services, we'll say Mourner's Kaddish. There is a piece in the Shulchan Aruch that we're reliant on for saying Mourner's Kaddish. It's this piece where we say, Hayu asara b'makom echad, if there were 10 people in one place, and they say Kaddish or they say Kedusha, even one person who is not with them can answer. And there's another piece of Talmud that speaks to this in Sota on 38b. If you have a long day ahead of you and you have Talmud Sota on the shelf, you can read this yourself. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi said, even an iron mechitza does not interpose between the Jewish people and their Father in heaven, Avinu Shabashamayim. The people are included in this benediction. Nothing can keep us. Not miles, not Zoom screens. Nothing stands in between us. I'm sorry that I can't do exactly the Musaf that we're going to do, but I can give you these words of Kaddish. I can give you those notes and tell you that we're in Musaf. In a few minutes, I'm going to give you the full Hineni. And then I'm going to do a Musaf Amidah with you, and we're going to do it one way today, and then we're going to do it a different way the next day. So after I complete a full Hineni, we're going to do our Musaf Amidah together. And I want to offer gratitude to 2 people for making this possible. The first person I want to offer gratitude to is also here today. Larry Herman and I spoke about this at length. He joined our liturgy task force and helped me think through how on day 1, we're going to do this a little bit differently than day 2. We're going to do this Amidah together. There's not going to be a repetition, and we're also not going to do the first part out loud and then go quiet. We're going to do this all out loud together. But in order to do it all out loud together, we're going to have to do it all out loud together, skipping some parts of it that require us doing a minyan. And in order to do that, we're going to have to pray it together from the portion of our machzor that requires us to look at it as a repetition of the Amidah. So we'll do Hineni on page 140. That is, I'll sing Hineni, the prayer of the cantor. And then we're going to do the repetition of the Amidah. That is, pray it as our individual Amidah starting on page 141. And then a member of our community, a board member, and also a dedicated to liturgy member of our community, Michael Becker, who is going to be unmuted, but not yet, and spotlit, but not yet, just a few minutes, is going to serve as a narrator, basically, through our Musaf service, guiding through so that I don't disrupt my own prayers, but he's giving up his own experience just for the moment so that he can guide us through page by page, and we're going to dive in this together. Tomorrow, we're going to do it differently. We'll have a chance for a whispered Amidah, and then we'll go through a repetition, but a repetition basically as highlights. Today, we're doing it this way. So I invite you to turn to page 140, where I'll pray the Hineni. And after that, we'll do that Amidah all together. And I'll give those instructions. I'll give the initiating instructions. And then the narrative voice that you'll hear for the rest of Musaf will be that of Michael's. We'll turn over to that in a minute. I'm on page 140. Hineni ani amimas nireshet v'nifchaytet mipachad yoshev tehilot Yisroel Bahati lamot ulitchanin lifanecha halamecha Yisroel asher shelachuni hafalvi Sheni chidayit v'aguna lecha lechein avakesh mimecha Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Adonai, Adonai, El Racham V'Chanun, Elohei Yisroel. Shaddai, Hayom Enora, Yina Matzliach Darkei, Asher Ani Yolechet Lamod Ulevakesh Rachamim Alai Yahali Sholechai Final Tavshim Yichadai Violet Chayvim Hamanodai Yechotev Shatani Vielkalam Hu Bishahai Hali Voshim Vielev Hoshabahim Vikabevati Vidati Not freaking law Vikolanaim Uvirkanai Umirevi Padati Maberiot Letikar Vasotan Livarios Tainaini Tiglein Walecha Hava Vialokot Vishaim Techasei Bihava Vichol Zarot Virot Hafochna Lanu Ulichor Yisroel לששון ולשמחה, לחיים ולשלום. האמת והשלום אהבו, ולא יהי שום מכשול בתפילתי. ויהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהי אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, שרה רבקה, רחל ולאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, יהי אשר יהי, שתבוא תפילתי לפני כיסא כבודך, מעבור כל הצדיקים וחסידים והתמימים והישרים, ועבור כבוד שמך הגדול והנורא. כי אתה שומע תפילת עמך ישראל ברחמים. ברוך אתה שומע תפילה. So everybody, please, wherever you are, take a deep, deep breath. We are going to do one Amidah. You can think of this two different ways. You can think of it as doing one repetition of the Amidah Lefi Harambam. This is a Maimonidean style repetition. If we think of this as us being all together, or you can think of this as each of us, kiyachid, as individuals, davening our own private Amidah together. That's probably more technically correct. Michael Becker is going to be spotlit alongside me. We'll both be spotlit and left unmuted. He's actually going to be made co-host so that he can remain muted and unmuted on and off throughout this. This is going to begin on page 141, and he's going to announce for me and for all of us the page skips that we're going to do in order to do this as individuals. So I'll be spotlit whenever Cameron is ready. I'll be spotlit, and Michael Becker will be spotlit. That should be happening momentarily. And then we'll begin the repetition of the Amidah. Just take a moment. Cameron, whenever you're ready, if you could spotlight me and also Michael Becker, so that we're ready to begin the repetition of the Amidah, page 141. Sometimes it just takes a moment on Zoom. We're at just one moment. Right now we have Steve. It looks like Steve is spotlit. It doesn't look like I'm spotlit or Michael. Steve should not be spotlight. You gotta cancel the spotlight on Steve. It's just me and Michael, yeah. Okay, page 141. Hishem Adonai Ekra, Havu Godel Eloheinu, Adonai Sifatai Tiftachu Fi Kitilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora elyon, gomel chasadim tovim, v'konei hakol, v'zocher hasti avot, u'mevi gohei livnei v'neihem, liman shimo v'yahava.
We skip to the last 2 lines on the page.
Sochreinu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chotveinu v'sefer ha'chaim, l'manecha Elohim chaim, melech ozer uvoked, Moshiach Magain, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, Ufoked Sarah, atah Gibor, Leolam Adonai, V'chaim itim atah, Rav lehoshia. Michal Kelechaim Mechesed, Mechayim Eitzim Merachamim Rabim, Somech Nofelim Merofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayim Emunatoli Sheinei Afar, Michamochabal Gevurot, Umidom Elach, Melech Limitu Mechayei, Umatzmiach Yeshua. Michamocha av harachamim, zocher yitzurav, l'chaim berachamim, v'ne'eman ata le'achayot mitim, Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei hamitim.
We skip the first 2 lines of page 143, which belong to the collective Kedusha. Cantor Chorny will chant the first 2 paragraphs of the powerful Unatana Tokef prayer that speaks both of the sounding of the great shofar and also the still small voice. And each of us from our own places will join in the responsive tune, Rosh Hashana.
Unitane Tokef, Kedushat Hayom, Kiyun Hoira V'Hayom, Uvot Inasei Malchutecha, V'Chom Hemit ki אתה הוא דיין ומוכיח ויודע בית. וחותם וסופר ומונה ותזכור כל הנשכחות ותפתח את ספר הזיכרונות ותפתח את ספר הזיכרונות ומעליו יקרא וחותם יד כל הטמא בו. ובשופר גדול ייתקע וכל דממה דקה יישמע ומלאכים יחפשון וכילורדו יוחזון ויאמרו הנה יום הדין יום הדין ידעי yedai leave Koran Tzivar my rom badin Yilo yizku v'necha badin V'chomai olam yavrim lefanecha kivnim haron Kivakarat rohe yitro Ma'avir tzonot tachat shivto Ken ta'avir v'tizbor V'timni v'timkot Nefesh kol chai V'tachtoch Kitzba lechom bria v'tichtov et gisar dinam. Rosh Hashana yikatevu Yom Tzom Kippur yichateimun Rosh Hashana yikatevu Yom Tzom Kippur yichateimun Kama yaveru Kama yibarehun Mi chiyai Mi yamut Mi v'kitzo Mi v'lo kitzo Mi v'hesh Mi v'mayim B'rosh Hashana yikatevu Yom Tzom Kippur yichateimun Rosh Hashana yikatevu Yom Tzom Kippur yichateimun Mi v'chai טרף ומבחיה, מברך ומבצמה, מבראש ומבמגפה, מבחניקה ומבסקילה. מראש השנה ייכתבו, ומיום צום כיפור ייחתמו. בראש השנה ייכתבו, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמו. מי ינוח, מי ינוח, מי ישקיט ומי טורח, מי ישלב ומי יתייסר, מי עני ומי עשיר, מי יושפע ומי ירום, ותשובה ותפילה וצדקה מעבירים את רוע הגזירה.
We continue on page 149.
וכן תנפחתך אדוני אלוהינו על כל מעשיך ואימתך על כל מה שבראת, ויראוך כל מעשים, וישחבו לפניך כל הבירואים, ויעשו כולם אגודה אחת לעשות רצונך בלבב שלם, כמו שידענו אדוני אלוהינו שהשלטון לפניך עוז בידך וברא במיניך ושמך נורא על כל מה שבראת. וכן תן כבוד אדוני לעמך, תהילה לרעך ותקווה לדורשך, ופיכם פלם יכלים לך, שמחה לארצך וששון ליראך, וצמיחת קרן לדוד עבדך, ועריכת נר לבן ישי משיחך, במהרה בימינו. וכן צדיקים יראו וישמחו, וישרים יעלוזו, וחסידים ברינה יגידו. ועולת תקפוץ פיה, וכל הרישה כולך כשן תכלה, היא תעביר ממשלת זדון מן הארץ.
Please continue on the very top of page 151.
ותמלוך אתה אדוני לבדך, על כל מעשיך בהר ציון משכן כבודך, וירושלים עיר קודשך, ככתוב בדברי קודשך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. קדוש אתה ונורא שמך, ואין אלוהך מבלעדיך, ככתוב, ויקבח אדוני צבאות במשפט, והאל הקדוש נקדש בצדקה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הקדוש. אתה בחרתנו מכל העמים, אותנו ורצית בנו, ורוממתנו מכל הלשונות, וקידשתנו במצוותיך, וקרבתנו מלכנו לעבודתך, ושמך הגדול והקדוש עלינו קראת, ותיתן לנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה את יום השבת הזה, ואת יום הזיכרון הזה, ואת יום זיכרון התרועה, באהבה מקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. ומפני חטאינו גלינו מארצנו, ונתרחקנו מעל אדמתנו, והאין אנחנו יכולים לעשות חובותינו, מבית בחירתך, מהבית הגדול והקדוש שנקרא שמך עליו, מפני היד שנשלחה במקדשך, יהי רצון מפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלך רחמן, המשיב בנים לבולם, שתשוב ותרחם עלינו, ועל מקדשך ברחמך הרבים, ותבנהו מהרה וגדל כבודו, אבינו מלכנו גלי כבוד מלכותך עלינו מהרה, והובה והינשא עלינו לעיני כל חי, וקרב בזורנו מבין הגויים, ונפוצותינו כנס מירכתי הארץ, והביאנו לציון עירך ברינה, וירושלים בית מקדשך בשמחת עולם, ששם עשו אבותינו לפניך את קורבנות חובותיהם, תמידים כסדרם ומוספים כהלכתם, ואת מוספי יום השבת הזה ויום הזיכרון הזה עשו והקריבו לפניך באהבת כמצוות רצונך, ככתוב בתורתך על ידי משה עבדך מפי כבודך כאמור. וביום השבת שני כבשים בני שנה תמימים, ושני עשרונים סולת מנחה, ולולב השמן רניסקו, עולת שבת בשבתו, על עולת התמיד ונזכח. ובחודש השביעי, באחד לחודש מקרא קודש, יהיה לכם כל מלאכת עבודה לא תעשו. יום תרועה יהיה לכם, ועשיתם עולה לריח ניחוח לאדוני, פר במקר אחד, איל אחד כבשים בני שנה שבעה תמימים, ומנחתה ונזקיהם כמדובר, 13 לפר ו12 לאיל, בשרון לכבש ויין כנזקו, ושני שעירים לכפר, ושני תמידים כהלכתם, מלבד עולת החודש ומנחתך, ועולת התמיד ומנחתך, ונזקיהם כמשפטם, לריח ניחוח ישאל Adonai.
We turn to the very top of page 153 for Yismechu, which we include because today is both Rosh Hashana and Shabbat.
Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomeri, shomeri, shomeri Shabbat, v'chorei honik Shabbat, hamekadeshei shvihi, kulam yismechu v'yiteneku mitulecha, uvashvihi ratzin tavo v'kidasho, חמדת ימי ואותו קראת, זכר למעשי בראשית.
Rabbi Chorny writes, Here we enter three stately, humbling portions of our Rosh Hashana Musaf liturgy. The first is Malchuyot, sovereignty, the theme at the heart of the whole day. Then Zichronot, a section about God's remembrances of the divine relationship with us and all humanity. And finally, Shofarot, recalling the many times our biblical literature uses the imagery of a resounding horn to lift up and cry out to our God. These segments of prayer are a departure from our usual structure, striking skyscrapers amidst a vast horizontal landscape of prayer. They ask of us, beg of us, how can we begin to interface with that which matters most differently? We are meant to be caught on them. They're supposed to leave us somewhat breathless, beginning with a full-bodied supplication at the Aleinu Hagadol on page 154. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, the burden that falls upon our shoulders to be responsible to the vision of the world desired by the Almighty is so weighty that it quite literally has us bending over and falling to our knees. For the next few minutes, give in to the idea that when we find ourselves brought low, we can look heavenward toward the omnipotent force for good in the universe. Please turn now to page 154.
כמשפחות האדמה שלא שם חלקנו כהם ויגור עלינו ככל המונם ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים. לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ ומושבי קרוב בשמיים ממהר ושכינתו זו בגבהי מרומים הוא אלוהינו אינות אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו ככתוב בתורתו והדעת היום והשבות אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת ein hod.
We skip to the middle of page 156. Rabbi Chorny begins chanting the verses of Malchuyot.
ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר לא הביט אביהם ביעקב, ולא רחם בישראל. אדוני אלוהיו עמו ותורת מלכו, ונאמר ויהי ישרון מלך בהתאסף ראשי עם ויחד שבטי ישראל, ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, כי לאדוני מלוכה מושל בגויים, ונאמר אדוני מלך גאות לבש, לבש אדוני עושית זר, אך תיכון תבל בל תמות, ונאמר שאו שרים ראשיכם, והנה שאו פתחי עולם, ויבוא מלך הכבוד, מי זה מלך הכבוד? אדוני יסוס וגיבור, אדוני גיבור מלחמה, שאו שרים ראשיכם, ושאו פתחי עולם, ויבוא מלך הכבוד, מי הוא זה מלך הכבוד? אדוני צבאות הוא מלך הכבוד. סלה, ועל ידי עבדיך הנביאים כתוב לאמור, כה אמר אדוני מלך ישראל, וגואלו אדוני צבאות, אני ראשון ואני אחרון, ומבלעדי אין אלוהים, ונאמר ולו מושיעים בהר ציון לשפוט את הר עשיו, והייתה לאדוני המלוכה, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ויום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, ובתורתך כתוב לאמור, שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד, אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלוך על כל העולם כולו בכבודך, והינשא על כל הארץ בקריך, והופע והדר גאון עוזך על כל יושבי תבל ארצך, וידע כל פעול כי אתה פעלתו, ויבין כל יצור כי אתה יצרתו, ויאמר כל אשר נשמה באפו, אדוני אלוהי ישראל מלך, ומלכותו בכל משלה. אלוהינו, אלוהי אבותינו, ראה צאתנו חטאנו, קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך, סבנו מטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך, והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו, באהבה ורצון שבת קודשך, והנוחו בישראל בקדשי שמך, מטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, כי אתה אלוהים אמת ודברך אמת וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני מלך על כל הארץ, מקדיש השבת בישראל ויום הזיכרון.
We continue in the middle of 158 singing Hayom Harat Olam. We will all have to come back tomorrow to hear Areshet Shefatenu and to hear Henry Morgan blow shofar, as it's not sung on Shabbat. We will sing the Hayom paragraph now and again at the end of the coming two sections as well.
Hayom, 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 Hayom. Hayom, 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 Hayom Harat Olam, Hayom Yamin B'Mishpat, Kol Yitzurei Olamim, Im Kevanim, Im Gavadim, Im Kevanim Rachameinu, Kirachem Hava Banim, Vehim Kavadim Eineinu, Lecha Tedu גלויות, עד שתכוננו ותוציא האור משפטנו היום קדוש. היום, 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 היום.
We continue on the top of page 161 with the Zichronot section of the Musaf Amidah.
אתה זוכר מה זה עולם ופוקד כל יצורי קדם, לפניך נגלו כל תעלומות והמון נסתרות שמבראשית, אין שכחה לפני כיסא כבודך, ואין נסתר מנגד עיניך. אתה זוכר את כל המפעל וגם כל יצור לא נכחד ממך. הכל גלוי וידוע לפניך אדוני אלוהינו. צופי ומביט עד סוף כל הדורות, היא תביא חוק זיכרון לפקד כל רוח ונפש, לזכר מעשים רבים והמון בריאות ואין תכלית, מראשית כזאת הודעת ומלפנים אותה גילית. זה היום תחילת מעשיך, זיכרון ליום ראשון, יהי חוק לישראל הוא, משפט לאלוהי יעקב, וכל המדינות בו יאמר, איזו לחרב ואיזו לשלום, איזו לרע ואיזו לטובה, ובריות בו יבקדו. להזכירם לחיים ולמוות, מי לא נפקד כהיום הזה, כי זכר כל היצור לפניך בא, מעשה איש ופקודתו, ולילון מצעדי גבר, מחשבותיהם ותחבולותיו, יצרי מעללי איש. אשריש שלא ישכחך, ובן אדם יתאמץ בה, כי דורשך לעולם לא ייכשלו, ולא יקלמו לנצח כל החוסים בך, כי זכר כל המעשים לפניך בה, ואתה דורש מעשי כולם. וגם את נוח באהבה זכרת, ותפקדהו בדבר ישועה ורחמים, והביאך את מי המבול, לשחט כל בשר מפני רוע מעליהם. על כן זיכרונו בא לפניך אדוני אלוהינו, לרבות זרעו כעברו תבל וצאצאיו ככל הים. ככתוב בתורתך, ויזכור אלוהים את נוח ואת כל החיה ואת כל הבהמה אשר איתו בטבע, ויעבר אלוהים רוח כל הארץ, וישוקו המים, ונאמר וישמע אלוהים את נאקתם, ויזכור אלוהים את בריתו, את אברהם, את יצחק ואת יעקב, ונאמר וזכרתי את בריתי יעקב, ואף את בריתי יצחק, ואף את בריתי אברהם יזכור, והארץ אזכור. ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, זכר עשה לנפלאותיו, חנון ורחום אדוני, ונאמר טרף נתן ליראיו, יזכור לעולם בריתו, ונאמר ויזכור להם בריתו, וינחם כרוב חסדיו, ועל ידי עבדיך הנביאים כתוב לאמור, הלוך וקראת באוזני ירושלים לאמור, כה אמר אדוני, זכרתי לך חסד נעורייך, אהבת כלולותייך, לכתך אחרי במדבר, בארץ לא זרועה, ונאמר, וזכרתי אני את בריתי, אותך וימי נעורייך, והקימותי לך ברית עולם, ונאמר, הבן יקיר לי אפרים, אם ילד שעשועים, כי מדי דברי בו זכור אזכרנו מאוד, על כן המומי היילו, רחם אחר עמנו נאום אדוני. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, זוכרנו בזיכרון טוב לפניך, ופוקדנו בפקודת ישועה ורחמים, משמי שמקדם וזכור לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, את הברית ואת החסד ואת השבועה אשר נשבעת אברהם אבינו בהר המוריה, ותראה לפניך עקדה שיכד אברהם אבינו את יצחק בנו על גבי המזבח, וחבש רחמיו לעשות רצונך בלבב שלם, כן יכבושו רחמך את חסך מעלינו, ובטובך הגדול ישוב חרונה בך מימיך מעירך מנחלתך, וקיים לנו אדוני אלוהינו את הדבר שהבטחתנו בתורתך על ידי משה עבדיך מפיך ועבדיך כאמור, וזכרתי להם ברית ראשונים אשר הוצאתי אותם מארץ מצרים, לעיני הגויים לחיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני, כי זוכר כל הנשכחות אתה ומעולם, ואין שכחה לפני חסד כבודך, ועקדת יצחק וזרעו, היום ברחמים תזכור. ברוך אתה אדוני, זוכר הברית. היום, 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 היום הרת עולם, היום ימיד במשפט, כל יצורי עולמים, עם כבנים ועם גבדים, עם כבנים רחמנו, כרחם אבל בנים, להם כבדים עינינו, לך תלויות, עד שתכוננו ותוציאך אור, משפטנו היום קדוש. היום, 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 היום.
We do indeed turn to the middle of page 164 for the opening verses of Shofarot, the third and final special section of the Musaf Amidah for Rosh Hashana.
ככתוב בתורתך, ויהי ביום השלישי בהיות הבוקר, ויהי קולות וברקים וענן כבד על ההר, וכל שופר חזק מאוד, ויחרד כל העם אשר במחנה. ונאמר ויהי קול השופר, הולך לחזק מאוד. משה ידבר והאלוהים יעננו בקול. ונאמר וכל העם רואים את הקולות, ואת הלפידים את קול השופר, ואת ההר השן, וירא העם וינועו, ויעמדו מרחוק, ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ודברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, הלא אלוהים בישועה אדוני בקול שופר, ונאמר בחצוצרות וקול שופר הריעו לפני המלך אדוני, ונאמר תיגעו בחודש שופר, וכסה ליום חגנו, כי חוק לישראל הוא, משפט לאלוהי יעקב, ונאמר הללויה בקודשו, הללויה ערכיהו זו, הללויה בגבורותיו, הללויה כרוב גודלו, הללויה ותיק השופר, הללויה נבח כינור, הללויה, 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 הללויה וטוב ומחול, הללויה מינים להוקה, הללויה צלצלי שמה, הללויה וצלצלי תרועה, כל הנשמה תהלל, כל הנשמה תהלל, הללויה, 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 הללויה. ועל ידי עבדיך הנביאים כתוב לאמור, כל יושבי תבל ושוכני הארץ, כי ימצור נס הרים תראו, וכי תקוע השופר תשמעו. ונאמר והיה ביום ההוא ייתקע בשופר גדול, ובאו העובדים בארץ אשור, והנידחים בארץ מצרים, וישתחוו לאדוני בהר הקודש בירושלים. ונאמר ואדוני עליהם יראה, ויצא ברק חיצו, ואדוני אלוהים בשופר ייתקע, והלך בשרות תימן, אדוני צבאות יגן עליהם, כן תגן על עמך ישראל, וישלומך אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, דקה בשופר גדול לחירותנו, והסניס לקבץ גלויותינו, והכר נפסותנו מבין הגויים, ונפוצותינו כנס מירכתי הארץ, והביאנו לציון עירך ברינה, ירושלים בית מקדשך ושמחת עולם, ששם עשו אבותינו לפניך את עולותיהם, ואת שמיהם, וכן כתוב בתורתך, וביום שמחתכם ובמועדיכם ובראשי חודשיכם, ותקעתם וחצוצרות על עלותיכם, ועל זבחי שלמיכם, והיו לכם לזיכרון לפני אלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. כי אתה שומע קול שופר, ומאזין תרועה דומה לך. ברוך אתה אדוני, שומע קול תרועות עמו ישראל ברחמים. היום, 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 היום הרת עולם, היום יעמיד במשפט כל יצורי עולמים, עם כבנים, עם כבדים, עם כבנים רחמנו, כרחם אבל בנים, ועם כבדים עינינו לחטלויות, עד שתכוננו ותוציא אור משפטנו היום קדוש. היום, 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 היום.
We turn the page to the top of 167, singing the first, but then skipping the second paragraph on the page.
Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu b'mecha Yisrael v'tfilatam v'hashevet avodah lidvir beitecha v'hishe Yisrael v'tfilatam v'hava tekabel b'ratzon u'tehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael hamecha v'techazena eineinu b'shuvcha l'tzion b'rachamim Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinatohu לציון מודים אנחנו לך. הטוב כי לא חלו רחמך, והמרחם כי לא תמו חסדיך, מעולם קיווינו לך, והכל כולם יתברך ויתרומם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד. אבינו מלכנו זכור רחמך וכפוש כעסך, וכלי דבר וחרב ורעב ושבי ומשחית ועוון ושמד ומגפה, ופגע רע וכל מחלה וכל תקלה וכל קטטה וכל מיני פורעניות וכל גזירה רעה ושנאת חינם מעלינו ומעל כל בני בריתך ומעל כל העולם. וכתוב לחיים טובים כל בני בריתך וכל החיים יודוך צלה ויעללו את שמך באמת. האל ישועתנו ועזרתנו סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני הטוב שמך ולך נאה להודות.
We turn the page, continuing with Sim Shalom in the middle of 169.
שים שלום טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Amecha. Barcheinu avinu kulanu keechad, be'or panecha, ki be'or panecha natata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Torat chaim ve'ahavat chesed, Utzedaka uvracha, ve'rachamim ve'chaim ve'shalom, yadai, v'tov v'necha levarech et amecha, Yisrael, v'chol lehetu v'chol shah, Yishlomecha, v'sefer chaim miracha v'shalom, ufarnasa tova, nizacher v'nikatev lefanecha. אנחנו וכל עמך ישראל, לחיים טובים ולשלום. ונאמר, וירבו ימיך ויוסיפו לך שנות חיים, לחיים טובים תכתבנו, אלוהים חיים, כותבנו בספר החיים, כך כתוב ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם, חיים כולכם. Hayom, 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 T'aviseinu, amen. Hayom, 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 T'varecheinu, amen. Hayom, 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 T'gadaleinu, amen. Hayom, 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 tirishenu letova, amen. Hayom, 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 tichtevenu lechayim tovim, amen. Hayom, 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 tekabel berachamim v'ratzon et tefilatenu, amen. Hayom, 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 tishma shavatenu, amen. Hayom, 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 tismechenu mitzidkecha, amen. Hayom hazeh tivihenu sasim usmechim bevinyan shalem, kakatuv al yad v'yecha, v'haviotim el har kodeshi, v'simachtim b'veit tefilati, kiveiti beit tefila, yikarei l'chol ha'amim, uzdakav rachamim v'chayim v'shalom. Yihei lanu l'chol Yisrael, u'l'chol yoshavei tevel, ad ha'olam, Baruch az Adonai Osei HaShalom. I thank you very much, Michael, for serving as our narrator during that, for serving in my stead. I hope that all of you had an opportunity to pray your own whispered Amidah at the same time as I prayed my own not so whispered Amidah. Had an opportunity to do this very strange thing of praising God at a time that normatively would have been a whisper, but doing it while I wasn't whispering, but knowing that there were so many whispers happening for so many other people in so many other places. There's this other thing that happens at this moment, usually,
And it's so anticipated, and we're missing it doubly this year because not only do we not have the Kaddish Shalom with the shofar blasts that we add in usually at this time because it's Shabbat and we don't have shofar, but we don't even have Kaddish Shalom because we're not together in this room. We'll do Mourner's Kaddish in a few minutes, but we don't even have Kaddish Shalom. So because we don't have that, I'm going to give us the Oseh Shalom that we would end with, because Oseh Shalom is also found in the private ending supplication that we have at the end of our own whispered private Amidah. So if you like, you can turn and you can look and you can sing along with me at the bottom of page 171. Oseh Shalom b'romav hu yaseh shalom aleinu aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. It is not the same. It's not the full. But I gave you the first opening words of the Chatzi Kaddish and the closing words of this Kaddish Shalem. At least it's something to open Kaddish and to close Kaddish together. We turn to Ein Keloheinu, page 172. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadoneinu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadoneinu, Michamalkeinu, Michemoshienu, no Deleloheinu, no Deladoneinu, no Delemalkeinu, no Delemoshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adoneinu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adoneinu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shektiru Avoteinu, Lefaneicha et Ketoret Hasamim. You're invited to rise. We're on 173. This time, Aleinu, per usual, the end of the service. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, lateit gedula liutzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, v'lo samanu kimishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu koreim, u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech, Malchei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shem Deshamayim. Kakatu b'Torah techanun hayim loch le'olam va'ed v'nemar v'haya Adonai le'melech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. We turn to Mourner's Kaddish, page 174. Just looking at the screen here, and I can't see all of your faces. I know there are so many of us joining here at this time, and I'm noticing that there might be people here who are in the midst of saying Kaddish. And I'm wondering if somebody who is saying Kaddish today might lead us in that Kaddish. And what you can do is you can indicate for us either by raising your virtual hand or by waving at the screen. Maybe you're one of our usual Kaddish sayers, or maybe you have a yard site on the first day of Rosh Hashana. And you can let Cameron know because I might not see you on the 25 faces that I see. But if you could let him know, I might not be able to call on you, but he can. So if you could wave at him, if you're willing to be that person who's unmuted. And then if I don't see anybody in just a moment or hear anyone unmuted, then I'll go ahead and say Kaddish. But I want to give this a moment to see if anybody gets unmuted. Okay. So it looks like there's nobody getting unmuted for the, oh, maybe somebody's waving at the screen. Is that somebody indicating? You got to do it loud and proud. Somebody's waving at the bottom of my screen. Just come a little bit closer so I can see the face of who you are who's waving at the screen. Okay. And then Cameron can unmute you. Cameron, you can just do whoever it is. Kol hakodem zocheh, the first one who gets to his first. It's not because you're more important or less important. It's just the first one. So Cameron, if you could look at the screen and then just unmute them, or Kenji, whoever gets to you first. Hopefully we can have somebody come to you and unmute. Sometimes it just takes a moment. Should be able to. Oh yeah, you should be unmuted now.
Should I start?
There you go. Okay, and go ahead and start. We're on 174.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei rabah
Amen.
v'yamad divarach v'rei kurete yamliv malchute b'chayon u'meichon u'chayei dechol bet Yisrael v'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru amen.
Amen. Yehi shemei rabah mevarach leolam l'amei maya.
Yitbarach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh v'tadar v'yitalel v'yitalal shmei d'kurusha v'richu le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran v'alma v'imru
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Ose shalom b'mromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen.
Amen. May the memory of your loved one be for a blessing. Thank you for leading us in that. Before Adon Olam, I want to take a moment to say Yishar Koach to everybody who participated in our service today, who led us in our services today. Let me take a look back at who those people were so I don't forget. I want to wish Yishar Koach and absentia to Rabbi Kligfeld for leading us this morning, and also to Deborah Bard, to Rick Muller, to Jen Lowe, and to Steve Gray for being our readers earlier. And thank you again to Michael Becker for being narrator, for being MC during that Musaf service. It's so great that all of you were able to join today. For those of you who are joining in on YouTube, as I know that many people may have set their live streams to go, you can continue to watch on YouTube as well. What's going to happen at the end of this service is this Zoom room is going to stay open. This YouTube live stream is going to stay open. Actually, there's a second YouTube stream that's going to open up for the second day. That's a little bit complicated, but you'll see a second stream will pop up for this. And you'll just be able to keep watching along online on our YouTube channel as this same service is open tomorrow. But this Zoom room will remain open. This particular room, if you were to leave it open, if you were to leave your device open, and perhaps you did since the beginning of Shabbat and Yom Tov, you'll be able to stay in here in traditional and truncated. Some reminders about tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, we begin again at 9 in the morning. If you're joining us for virtual services, we begin at 9 in the morning with traditional and truncated services, with Keva and Kavanah services. There's a lounge earlier in the day tomorrow morning. There is also Hamalot services available tomorrow, our really creative and innovative service available tomorrow morning. And you can join in and watch as Cantor Michelle Stone and Josh Warshofsky, Rabbi Josh Warshofsky, join in along with Rabbi Matt Shapiro with Rabbis Klickfeld and Rabbi Rebecca Schatz as well. And that service is all happening at 11 tomorrow. So basically the same morning service start times as Kevin, Kavanagh, and Traditional and Truncated, but with those additional alternative services as well. Don't forget, of course, tomorrow there's shofar. There's all sorts of interesting information, both in those High Holy Day kits that came to our Temple Beth Am members, and also as was available on our website regarding shofar blasts happening all around our town. So don't miss out on that as well. I hope that your holidays, wherever you find yourself, are sweet, if different, healthy, if different, that you find yourself surrounded by something that gives you a tremendous amount of comfort. And as Rabbi Shapiro said in his words today, I hope that something that you find yourself surrounded by today brings you a bit of wonder, or that something that you found yourself surrounded by today, you find yourself wondering about. I want to give you something before we end with a Don Olam. It's a poem by Devon Spire. She's somebody who I met this year online. She's Canadian. She's a Paitan, a poetess, a Jewish poet and a rabbinical student. She's a remarkable writer of Jewish liturgy. And she wrote this about what to say when you have no words to pray. And I encourage you to keep praying, even when you have no words. Here is something about praying when you have no words and when you want to remember the people who you wish were with you this year. And that is certainly how I feel. A poem by Devon Spire. Sometimes when I have no words to pray, I just start saying people's names, and between each pause, I curl up against, I swear, I hear God's delighted yes exclaim. This year, as you say the names of the people who are with you and the people whom you miss, may you swear you hear God's delighted yes exclaim. Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova, and we turn to 175 for Adon Olam. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Liheit Masa, Bechefzo Kol, Hazai Melech Shemo Nikra, Hazai Melech Shemo Nikra, V'hacharei Kichlot HaKol Levado, Yimloch Nora, V'hu Haya, V'hu Hove, Vehu yeh v'tifara, vehu yeh v'tifara, vehu echad ve'ein sheni lehamshilo lehachbira, ve'li reishit ve'li tachlit ve'lo haos ve'hamisra ve'lo haos ve'hamisra, vehu eli ve'chai goli ve'tzur Chevli v'yitzara v'hunisi umanosli menat kosi b'yom mekra menat kosi b'yom mekra v'yato afkid ruchi b'heit ishan v'ha'ira v'im ruchi yeviati Adonai li v'lo ira Adonai Whether I see you back in this room tomorrow or whether you find yourself wandering somehow, some way, may you find it to be sweet. Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova, and it's been wonderful to be with you.
Yishar Kochech and Shabbat Shalom and Shana Tova, and thank you, Rabbi.